guys, let's look at 10 different tools that every small workshop should have that you might not think are necessary. The first one on our list, of course, is the Doug's Messy Garage coffee cup. That doesn't really count. That's just sitting on the bench, so I figured I'd point it out to you. Links to my merch store are down below the video. The first item that we're going to look at are fuel line pliers. The way these work is when you're trying to disconnect a hose off of a barb fitting, and pulling on the barb fitting is just difficult to do. What this allows you to do is go in around the base and wiggle the hose off of the barb fitting. These ones came from Harbor Freight Tools. They're Pittsburgh brand, and I think they're a little hard to find. I know I had to go to several different Harbor Freight Tools stores before I found this set hanging on the wall in the automotive, kind of their specialty automotive tools section. They're not discontinued or anything. They're just, I think they don't make a whole lot of them, and they're fairly popular. Very handy tool to have when working on small engines. Next tool that I like to have in my box is a dead blow hammer. Dead blow Unicast, 1.5 pound. I don't know the brand name. I've had it for a number of years. But inside of this hammerhead is a hollow that has lead shot in it. And when you hit, it hits solid and it doesn't bounce. And also it's kind of got a non-marring surface because it's a plastic hammer. This one is one that I use primarily for shaping wing ribs when I'm building airplanes. And it has shaped many sets of wing ribs. Still in reasonably good shape. Certainly a handy hammer to have when you're beating on things. Pair of scissors. Why are scissors important, you might ask? Well, it's not something you'd necessarily think of that you need in your toolbox, but here's a piece of rubber, and if I can cut it one-handed. Something that's easier to do with two hands, but can't do that with the camera. But it's just a handy thing to have. There's always stuff that you need to cut that a pair of scissors is perfect for. Gasket paper to make your own gaskets. Piece of inner tube to use as padding between two pieces of metal. All sorts of uses for just your standard, good old, decent quality pair of scissors. Don't buy the dollar store ones. You get a nice stationery store set so that they last a little longer. Don't use them as side cutters. Don't cut wires with them. Don't cut metal with them. They're going to last a while. Take care of them and your tools will last. A magnet with a flexible handle. As you can see, this has a kind of a snake type handle on it, and pick up metal items from depths where they have fallen into. If you're working on cars, guaranteed at some point you are going to drop a nut or a washer down into some cavern somewheres that is difficult to dig it out of. And having a magnet on a long flexible handle is definitely a handy tool to have. What? A Phillips screwdriver? Why do we care about a Phillips screwdriver? Everybody's got a Phillips screwdriver in their toolbox. Well, this actually isn't a Phillips screwdriver. This is a JIS screwdriver. Where they are handy, I don't know how well this is going to show up. The Phillips screwdriver tends to come down to a point, and the JIS is more square. The tips of the blades are more square. Absolutely, if you're working on Mikuni carburetors, you need to have a JIS screwdriver because they are put together with JIS screws, and a common complaint of people working on small engines is that the Mikuni carburetor screws seem to be made of Play-Doh and they're easily stripped out. Well, that's because you're not using the correct screwdriver. Get the JIS, and the screws on the Mikuni, well, still a little on the fragile side, are much easier to work with. The added bonus that the straight tip of the JIS screwdriver works better in slightly damaged Phillips head screws as well. Very much a JIS screwdriver is a handy tool to have in your toolbox. Another handy tool to have when working on automobiles and anything that's got a threaded line coming into it are line wrenches or flare nut wrenches. And you'll notice that these wrenches go around to grab on the back side of any of the nuts. And absolutely, if you use a standard spanner on a brake line that's been in place for a number of years, you're going to round it off and end up having to use vice grips or cut it out of there. It's much better to use the proper line. I was working on my Corvette last fall, getting the brake system buttoned back up after a number of years of not driving it, and needed one wrench. And it was actually cheaper to buy this complete set. They were not expensive, and than it was to buy the one wrench that I needed. Hey guys, we reached what is pretty well the midpoint of the video, and I'd like to take a moment to ask a real big favor. Can you guys please give a thumb up to this video? You have no idea how much that thumb up button or like button helps small channels like mine grow. YouTube will only share the video so far if they don't get positive indications from viewers like you. And the thumb up or like button is a very good indication that you like the video and it's worthwhile sharing to other people. Also, for those viewers who regularly watch my content, can you please check and see if you are subscribed? I've noticed on my YouTube statistics lately that there's been a number of unsubscriptions, and I know every once in a while YouTube goes through and cleans out a bunch of suspicious subscriptions, and several even bigger channels notice that every once in a while they'll have a large drop in their subscription numbers. So if you are interested in seeing more content from my channel, please subscribe to the channel, ring that bell icon, and it helps get my content out to more of you. Thank you very much for listening to this request for some assistance. The next item on my list of must-have tools is a torque wrench. This is a 3/8 inch drive and it is in foot-pounds, so it's better for larger bolts, not the inch-pound stuff. I do have smaller ones for inch-pounds. Most people use the calibrated elbow or one tugga or two tuggas on the impact gun as torque, and in a lot of cases you can get away with that, but there are some places where you really need to torque things down. Cylinder head bolts definitely need to be torqued, and so it's always handy to have one of these. They're not terribly expensive. $20–30 gets you a decent ratchet style or click style torque wrench, and accurate enough for the small home mechanic. A worn out old toothbrush. Unbelievably handy for squirting a little bit of brake cleaner on and getting down into those tight spaces to get the grease and grime away from things. Very handy for cleaning, and let's face it, how many times have you tossed one of these in the garbage? Handy to have in the toolbox, rinse it off good, and throw it in your toolbox for future use. Of this day and age of relatively inexpensive electric ratchets, electric cordless ratchets, like the Milwaukee, or I think Harbor Freight has a couple of different ones that they sell. Many of the cordless tool brands have cordless ratchets that are not expensive. They work very well. But the good old speed handle still has its place. When you're getting down into a small area and you want to have feel on the bolt so you can feel how it's going in, the speed handle does a very nice job of that. These aren't expensive, and they're handy to have. You're not going to use them every day, but there's times when having the good old-fashioned speed handle is a very good thing to have sitting in your toolbox. Here we have the grease joint rejuvenator. These are not a real common thing. Where I learned about these was from Diesel Creek. Matt on Diesel Creek showed this in action, and what it does, here's a grease zerk, and you can see the little ball bearing. Underneath the ball bearing is a tube that goes down into whatever it is being greased. And the problem that you get into is grease attracts dirt, dust, grime, that kind of thing, and when it gets mixed with dirt and ages, it kind of turns into a wax. So you'll kind of end up with almost like a wax plug down in the grease fitting, and you can't put fresh grease in. using a conventional grease gun. Keeping in mind, your conventional grease gun, I forget what the pressure is, but it's pretty amazing what it's putting on for pressure. But it's still not able to force its way past a plug of dirt and grime in one of these Zerk fittings. The way the Rejuvenator works is it's got kind of like a conventional tip, like a grease gun on it. And do this one-handed. It has a piston that you pull out. Squirt a little brake cleaner or some other solvent into the tube. Start the piston back down the hole, put it on your grease zerk, and then give it a whack or two with a hammer. And that puts the solvent down into that the grease zerk and softens up the grunge that's underneath the ball bearing. Allows you to start using your grease fitting. Not necessarily 100% going to work. Certainly is better than having to replace a welded on zerk or go without grease and have a bunch of wear on whatever piece of equipment you are trying to get longer life out of. I got this from Amazon. Affiliate link will be down below in the description. You can see we've got a couple of different adapters, a hose for extending, another style of fitting for the grease gun. Handy tool to have. Is it a must-have? No, but definitely useful to have in your toolbox. Another handy tool to have is a thumb ratchet. It's strictly just the ratcheting head in a small package. You can get into smaller locations. Obviously, you're not going to put massive amount of torque on a bolt using this, but once you break it free, having a ratchet that's just between your thumb and finger is handy to get into tight spots. A bonus tool to have in your toolbox is a self-filtering funnel. This type of funnel does filtering in a couple of different ways. You can see the green filter screen. That's a fairly fine mesh, and you can even see a few particles. I don't know, that light's probably kind of blinding you guys, but you can see a few particles that are stuck to the screen, and that keeps those particles from going into the outlet of the funnel. Plus, you can see we've got that cup that's down below the green screen material. And these funnels have kind of like a settling pool that has to fill up with fuel before it starts running down the center, and it allows water to separate out, at least any water that hasn't been soaked up by the alcohol in ethanol-laced fuel. Where I first saw this style of funnel used was in ultralight aviation. We ran our two-stroke fuel through these funnels before putting it in the airplane. It certainly helped keep the fuel clean. One more bonus item. We've got a magnetic oil dipstick for small engines. This is the same thread here that the Honda clone engines all use for their oil dipsticks, and it's got steps on it that are graduated, and at the end it's got a magnet. One of the problems with the Honda clones, the Predators, the Kohlers, any of those engines, one of the problems with them is they don't really have any oil filtration on the smaller versions of them. And what this does is it allows any ferrous metal particulate, ground up steel, to collect on the tip of the magnet instead of being thrown around on the inside of the engine. This definitely adds life to your small engines. Basically gives you some filtration for your oil. For the $10 or $15 these cost, it's cheap insurance for your small engines. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Take the time to give me that thumb up. I really appreciate that. Doesn't cost you guys anything, and it really helps the channel. Consider subscribing if you want to see more content from Doug's Messy Garage, and we'll catch you guys in the next mess. Thanks for watching.